Come on. Yuki's darkest videos 8.
It was 2:46 p.m. when the ground began to shake.
Damn!
For residents of Anagawa, Japan, earthquakes were nothing new.
That had to be Japan.
But this one was different. It carried with it a violence that none of the locals had ever felt before, and by the time the shaking had stopped, everyone in the city seemed to be left in a momentary state of shock. This was especially true for the nearly 160 Chinese workers and students that had recently moved to the area, with most having never experienced any earthquake, let alone one. And it carried with it a violence that none of the locals had ever felt before, and by the time the shaking had stopped, everyone in the city seemed to be left in a momentary state of shock. This was especially true for the nearly 160 Chinese workers and students that had recently moved to the area, with most having never experienced any earthquake, let alone one of this magnitude. Of these workers were a tight-knit group of 20 women who had recently been hired as trainees at a company called Sato Susan, a company that sold fresh seafood. And having been at work at the time of the quake, they frantically ran out of the building and stood in the street desperately trying to figure out what to do next, unaware of the fact that the real horrors were still yet to come. In Japan, it's not just the earthquakes you have to worry about, but the tsunamis that often follow, and usually the bigger the earthquake, the bigger the wave. And given that Anagawa was right on the sea and Sato Susan was directly on the shoreline, these women were now standing directly in the path of an impending disaster. Thankfully, their boss, Mitsudo Sato, was well aware of what was to come, and quickly he yelled to the women to seek higher ground. But given their unfamiliarity with the area, Sato knew that he would have to be the one to lead them there. The group readily listened, and they quickly followed Sato as he led them up a set of stairs on a nearby hill, where they eventually reached a shrine that overlooked Anagawa and the sea. It was the highest point in the area, and should keep them safe from what would likely be a massive influx of water. And sure enough, as they neared the top, Sato's fears were already coming true. As the sea had drastically retreated, it was now beginning to push forward, and things were only going to get worse from here. But despite understanding this, it wasn't a deterrent for Sato, as once he deemed the altitude safe enough for this group of women, he then turned around and began to walk back down the hill towards the slowly flooding city. The girls yelled at him asking where he was going, which is when he revealed that down below in his home in Anagawa were his wife and his daughter, who were now directly in the path of this unfolding disaster, and he was going to save them. The girls screamed out to him, begging him not to go, as things had already become incredibly dangerous, but he didn't so much as turn his head as he stepped down onto the street and disappeared from their view.
He a bold man, bro.
And it was at this time that one of those girls standing high atop the hill began to record.
That was... Bro, I keep forgetting this nigga do his intros like this.
All my life, family has been super important. Even with my... They also colorized the...
He disappeared without dancing.
Story.
You want this nigga to do two-step? Oh, yeah. Bro, and him and goddamn hit an Irish jig in the middle of a damn tsunami.
The footage shows that the shoreline was no more, as the water had inundated the entire area as it slowly crept its way deeper and deeper into the city streets.
See, I've been wanting to go to like Japan and like shit like that, bro. But you know how bad or unlucky you have to be to get in the midst of that shit, bro? I ain't gonna lie, that just gotta be your time to go at that point, bro. If that shit happens, bro, that shit's bad.
The women were understandably in a panic, trying to make sense of this ordeal that they were now given a front row seat to. And as they record, we can hear them desperately calling out for Sato, but at no point do we see him. We just know that he's down there, somewhere. And as the desperation in their pleas increases, so too does the fury of the water.
You genuinely gotta be one unlucky person. Hey! I don't know, that's the thing. I don't know. I don't know if it's in a certain part either though. Like, I don't know if it's like if
They
you're
could
near
only
the
watch
oceans or
as
I don't know.
Anagawa as they knew it was completely eviscerated.
I don't know, bro. Has Shibuya ever caught like tsunamis? Is he in there?
And by this point, they realized that there was now essentially no hope for Sato.
We or them?
It was at this time that the women realized that despite already being at a considerable height, it still might not be enough. And so they ran even higher up the hill, desperately trying to get out of the path of this
I don't think it
water.
happens in Shibuya. I don't know.
And as they did so, they noticed something down below.
You see the water? Is that nigga in the water? The hell?
Standing on a rooftop in the middle of this massive tsunami was Mitsudo Sato.
See, he a bold, brave nigga, bro. Nigga walking on roofs to get there? I ain't gonna lie, bro. I don't know who he's feeling like the Ghost of Tsushima or some shit, my nigga. But it's some shit. I ain't gonna lie. Listen, I know your daughter and your wife is down there. Us don't get tsunamis, right? Nah, I don't think so. I don't think we do. Sir, I think we just, the most we get is like earthquakes or something, right? I don't think we get tsunamis. Unless we probably live, unless you're near like a big border of water or something.
The building that he stood on was once a full 2 stories off the ground, but was now just a few inches above the surface of the water.
We don't get tsunamis unless you're near like a big border. I don't even think Florida gets tsunamis, right? Or do they? Right? I don't know. Y'all taking 100 niggas.
The women again call out to him, this time even more frantically. But at this point, it was no use. And when the camera is taken off Sato for just a split second, we can hear just from the women's reaction the exact moment that he swept away. The recording stops shortly after and restarts minutes later, revealing that the streets where the women had been standing just moments before were now fully underwater, and the buildings that once stood around them were now reduced to nothingness. In front of them was a sea of death, and had Mitsudo Sato not led them up that hill, then all of these women would have certainly been a part of it. The date was March 11th, 2011, a day where Japan had been hit by its most devastating earthquake ever, with it ringing in at a magnitude 9.0, which in turn caused the nation's worst ever tsunami, as that day, 19,759 people would lose their lives.
Nigga, 19,000? God damn! They was stream sniped the fuck out of me. Hey, bro, fuck, we got no delay. I ain't gonna lie, we on good timing today.
9.0,
but 19,000,
which in turn caused the nation's worst ever tsunami, as that day, 19,759 people would lose their lives, with Mitsudo Sato being one of them. But against all odds, his wife and daughter were not part of that death toll.
That's as many people that could fit in like a coliseum or something,
as it's been reported that they were later found alive and unharmed. The devastation that occurred that day is incomprehensible, and all the footage of this disaster could warrant a place in this video, especially the footage of Anagawa, as you can see what it looked like before, during, and after. The devastation, as it's been reported, but against all odds,
but it's something in front of it. I don't know.
His wife and daughter were not part of that death toll, as it's been reported that they were later found alive and unharmed.
Let's say something at the end.
The devastation that occurred that day is incomprehensible, and all the footage of this disaster could warrant a place in this video, especially the footage of Anagawa, as you can see what it looked like before, during,
RP, did they find his body?
And after.
Damn. That's just scary. I want to go to Japan so bad, but that shit's so... That's so damn scary, bro. I don't know if it's like in every part of Japan it does that.
But what I found so interesting about this was all throughout this disaster were stories
so
like
scary,
Sato's, a man who risked his life to save 20 women that he hardly knew, and a man who gave his life trying to save his family, walking directly into the path of the worst natural disaster in modern Japanese history,
right now, bro.
all in an attempt
If they do
to
not have a
save the ones
statue
that
of
he
that
loved.
nigga right now, bro.
And I honestly find it quite beautiful
Y'all didn't
that
respect him
afterwards,
enough.
these women adamantly shared his story and made sure that the world forever remembered Misuro Sato as the hero that he was. And of those 160 Chinese migrants who worked in the area, it was later reported that not a single one of them perished, which speaks volumes about the people of Anagawa, who so readily put
I ain't
others'
gonna lie,
lives
bro.
before their
You
own.
genuinely need to put a statue of that nigga up, bro. Now, obviously, he couldn't save the entire 19,000.
A blaze in Georgetown.
Still,
Two
he
people
did
found dead
his
inside
work,
the
though.
home, and so far it's not known.
Chapter 2,
how
the man in the
fire
garage.
It was just past 5:30 a.m. on the 17th of February 2021 when residents of a small neighborhood in Georgetown, Ontario were woken by the sound
If the three little piggies built a crib in Japan and the tsunami hits, wouldn't it wreck? I'm pretty sure you can answer your damn question. I'm pretty sure you can answer your own damn question with that one, man. If you see a wolf come up with his hot ass breath and it falls down, what do you think a tsunami doing?
of sirens blaring.
Wolf going out with
One
it.
man frantically grabbed his cell phone and rushed outside to record the unfolding scene, where he was met with a horrific sight.
Damn.
His neighbor's home was fully engulfed in flames. It must have happened quickly, as by the time rescue workers even arrived on the scene, there was already little hope of saving the house
I thought it
or
would
any of
stay
its
up.
occupants. It would take hours before that blaze was finally quelled, revealing
You know
the
the
charred
pigs ain't got
devastation
no damn
inside,
metal, man.
as firefighters would find the remains
What
of
was the wait? Didn't
56-year-old
they try building their houses out of wood and stick and something like that? What made it stay up? I forgot. Was it brick? But the thing is, wouldn't you have to put the little salt or something like that, salt shit under the bricks to make them stay together? Pigs don't have hands. How the hell were they picking up the bricks? And how are they picking up the little spatula thing to rub under the brick? Something not right, bro. Mouth? So they're telling me they were comprehending to pick up the brick with their mouth. But you gotta think how big a house can get. How are they getting up there? You think they're grabbing ladders too? There's dicks. Okay, yeah, let's just continue.
Christina Rirak and 59-year-old Andrew Rirak within the home's garage. The cause of this fire was initially unknown, but quickly the situation was deemed suspicious when experts determined that the fire had started as a result of some sort of explosion that had happened within the
I ain't gonna
garage
lie,
where the
bro.
couple's bodies were found.
I think we
This
might
was
have
later
the
confirmed
genius
by
here,
security
y'all.
footage
I think
obtained
we
from a
just
neighbor
found the
who lived
genius.
across the street, capturing the moments when it
Damn!
suddenly ignited around
Hold
5:27
on, y'all ain't see
a.m.
that. Y'all ain't see
There
that.
was clearly something off with this case.
Bro, that shit just blew the fuck
Ignited
up.
security footage obtained from a neighbor who lived across the street, capturing the moments when it suddenly ignited around 5:27 a.m. There was clearly something off with this case, and things only became more sinister following the autopsies of Andrew and Christina, which revealed that they hadn't actually died in that fire, and instead,
Them niggas inferno.
both of them had been stabbed to death, with
fuck.
Andrew also being badly beaten. This fire wasn't started to kill them.
I ain't gonna lie,
It was
they
started.
had a nigga out to get them, bro. They genuinely had a nigga out to get them, bro. I don't know who the fuck their opposition was, my nigga. Setting the house on fire, stabbing in GTA, beating it, bro. What the fuck?
Started to
I ain't
cover
gonna
up
lie.
their murder. And it did a good job of it too, as the scene was now left completely destroyed, with very
Close
little
that
evidence
back door,
being left
Grandpa.
behind. But there was something else investigators thought to check. That's security
Nah,
footage.
bro, I think they was
The camera had been facing
They had
the
to be
garage where
beefing
all
with
of this
them
carnage
damn,
seemed to have happened, and so they thought maybe if they looked back far enough, it could at the very least show what had led up to this brutal attack.
They had
And
to
so
be
they
beefing with
rewound that
somebody, bro. I don't
footage,
know
going
who
back
the hell it is.
hours and
Maybe the
hours,
Yakuza, I don't
during
know
all
who
of
the fuck
which
would
the
do
garage
something.
had remained perfectly still, until they got all the way back to 6:42 of the day prior, February 16th. The film showed the moments that the couple had arrived
was
home
confused.
together inside of Christina's car, which Andrew had been driving that night.
Bro, that's what I'm saying. You can see his shadow, bro. You see that? Like, that's why I got closer. I thought I was tripping.
The moments that the couple had
bro,
arrived home together
inside
inside of Christina's car, which Andrew had been driving that night.
Did y'all see that? Y'all seen something walk, like, am I tripping? Maybe I'm tripping.
As he pulled uneventfully into the garage. This was the last time this couple was seen alive on camera, which on its own is disturbing enough. But as it turns out, there was something far more unsettling about this footage, as it revealed the fact that Christina and Andrew weren't alone.
See, Barney, I told you about them shits. So you talking about you be more than willing to pick up some homeless niggas and take them home, my nigga? This the shit I be talking about, bro. You can't just be doing shit, bro. You can't just be doing shit, bro.
And Andrew,
you can't just be doing things for people, bro.
Weren't alone.
You don't know what those niggas have strapped to their chest. See, I told, bro, what did I tell you? Look, there was a dude that came around the corner. Look.
The footage showed a tall figure, its features completely shrouded in darkness, almost as if it were a shadow, with this figure lying in wait out of sight on the side of the house, until right after Andrew pulls the car into the garage, when this person slips in behind them. It's impossible to say for sure if the couple noticed this person or not, but it appears that they likely didn't, as they both start to exit the vehicle, to which the figure then ducks down in an attempt to avoid detection.
That gotta be so fucking scary. We gotta do better for the community one by one, bro.
Until the garage door begins to slowly close.
Nigga, why are you closing it?
Either Christina or Andrew would make it out of that garage alive, as just seconds after this footage, they both would be brutally murdered by this unidentified person.
Bro, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I'm not gonna lie, bro. I don't even wish that on. You feel me? That shit's probably so damn scary, bro. That shit's always been like one of the scariest things that you could possibly think of, bro. Like, even when you just, like, God forbid, but, like, even when you home alone, bro. Even when you home alone, that's just the scariest thing you could possibly think of, bro. Like, just, like, someone else is there type shit. You know what I'm saying? That shit is so fucking scary, bro. I'm not gonna lie. That shit is dead ass so fucking scary.
The footage is terrifying and speaks to that innate fear in most of us. The fear of being followed, of being watched, and attacked in the moments where we least expect it. It's paranoia-inducing, and made even more off-putting by the fact that this clearly seemed to be premeditated. Whoever this was knew their schedule, and had been waiting for them to arrive home, in a place where they knew they wouldn't be seen. But by this point, their motivation was as unknown as their identity. Following the discovery of this footage, bits and pieces were released to the press in order to get the public's help in identifying this unknown assailant. It represented a rare instance of a killer being clearly caught on camera right before committing a crime. But that's also what made this case.
They're old niggas though, like, bruh. That's the thing I don't be understanding, bro. They're old people. How do you have ops as old niggas?
Is so frustrating, as despite the video capturing this person, none of their features were discernible at all. Unsurprisingly, the footage didn't bring in any relevant leads, but it at the very least showed investigators that whoever this person was knew the couple.
Even if they are rich old people, it's still like, it's not like he went in there and got something. He blew the house up. It's not like he went in there and got something. He genuinely just had hatred for him.
Due to its obvious premeditation, though when looking into both Andrew and Christina, it was clear that neither of them really had any enemies in their life, with the exception of one.
This is some Yakuza
Harrison
hit,
Brown
bro.
was a 27-year-old employee at a company called Rogue Transportations, of which Christina happened to be the vice president of operations. And during his time there, Harrison was known.
What's his boss at Rogue Transportation? I ain't gonna lie, anything with Rogue in front of it, bro. Yeah, you know that they're goddamn raising killers, my nigga. They're raising the next Yakuza members.
To be abrasive and combative, with Christina often having to be the one to reprimand him, leading to Harrison resenting her. It isn't clear how police were tipped off about this strained working relationship, but they had somehow grown suspicious enough of Harrison to pay his home a visit, and what they found inside showed that this resentment he had towards Christina had actually morphed into a twisted obsession. Inside, police found satellite images of the Rear-X home, along with the software on the man's computer and cell phone that showed that on the 12th of February, he had secretly attached a tracking device to Christina's car.
The fuck?
And he had been tracking her movements for days, which is precisely how he knew when she would be arriving home. And as if this revelation wasn't damning enough, they would also find a broken knife in his garage that contained trace amounts of Christina's blood. It was obvious what Harrison had done, and when confronted with this evidence, there was nothing more he could say other than the truth. So he admitted he had grown a hatred for Christina because of the way that she had treated him at work, and he decided that he needed to get his revenge. That's when he
I ain't gonna lie, bro. I ain't gonna lie, bro. That should be like that sometimes, bro. But not like that. No, I'm not saying like that. Not like that. But, nigga, I'm telling you, bro. The fuck, bro. Come on, bro. Let me explain, bro. Look, I ain't gonna lie. You gotta be OG to know when I was at that old car place. When I was at that old car place. I'm not gonna lie, bro. When I was at that old car place, and I had this one nigga that was there. That was like around my age. That was like around my age, bro. And he was like, I was about to say vice president. You know what I'm talking about, bro. General manager, GM, whatever it's called, my nigga. You know what I'm talking about. That nigga. So that nigga offered because, you know, he got the second higher up for manager and shit like that, right? Boom. Okay, cool, whatever. He did his work. He did his due diligence to get there, whatever. Cool. Nobody cares about the job as much as that nigga. Boom. So, since he has, like, that power, he thinks that he could talk to niggas any sort of kind of way. So, it's like, I be understanding how niggas be using their power sometimes, bro. They get a certain rank or a certain placement in the job, bro. Now they thinking they can talk to niggas any certain kind of way. He was talking to 50-year-olds crazy that worked there. Nigga was talking to me crazy. Nigga was talking to me crazy like this nigga was writing my damn checks. Nigga, we're the same age, nigga. Come on. Pipe down, little man. He over there talking crazy, my nigga. Like, I'm talking critiquing everything that you're doing, my nigga. If you don't put enough air in the damn tires, that nigga gives you the craziest look in the world, bro. He be like, move out the way. Let me do it. Like this nigga, like you doing this gonna make the shit go for any faster, my nigga. The fuck? Nigga, I can't control if this shit's slow or not. He was one of those type of niggas, bro. So it's like,
just this tracking device and began
not to the extent this much, bro.
Obsessing over her movements, studying them before finding the perfect time and place to strike. And on February 16th, he waited outside the Rear-X home and snuck into
He had some high-ass shorts on. I ain't gonna lie. We always had to wear a certain attire. He had some mean-ass high shorts. He had his shirt tucked in, bro. Bro, nigga.
Garage before attacking.
If our shirt wasn't even tucked in, the nigga would even say something crazy.
After the assault, Harrison would leave the home, where he began to grow paranoid about being caught, and so he returned to the house the very next morning to start that fire, with the hopes being that the blaze would cover up his tracks. Though thankfully, this didn't work, and after pleading guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of arson, Harrison Brown would be sentenced to life in prison.
Ready for business. Get the hell out of here. Chapter 3. Officers Feast dash. Feast? Oh, fuck no. Anything that starts like that, bro, hell no. I don't know. That probably is nothing right here, but I don't know. That just throws me off, bro. I watched too many Paranormal Activity movies for this.
It's the eve of Thanksgiving, 2015. Police officer Patrick Feaster sits in his cruiser parked alongside the road in the town of Paradise, California, waiting for his first action of this uncharacteristically quiet night. His car was facing the direction of a well-known local cantina, which patrons were known to drive away from under the influence. And sure enough, as the clock approached midnight, the calmness around Feaster would be shattered by the sight of a car speeding out of the restaurant's parking lot. The car went unseen by Feaster's dashcam, but not by Feaster himself, as he took off, doing his best to catch up with the car that was now speeding down the road. And
I can't be a cop, bro. I'm sorry.
In a few seconds, he does.
I can't be a cop, bro. I don't give a damn, bro. I ain't gonna lie. It's a fire hydrant. I thought that was actually a person just standing there, bro. I ain't gonna lie, bro. I can't be a cop, though. I can't, bro.
Was now speeding down the road.
Put your hands up
seconds,
now, scumbag!
As the car slowly comes into frame.
I can't do it. I feel like I'd be the same type of like cop from like Rush Hour, bro. I'd be like Chris Tucker. I wouldn't be able to do it.
First time. Inside that vehicle was 26-year-old Andrew.
And the thing is, though, like, imagine being on the other side of a police chase. Like, imagine a nigga chasing a nigga in a Hellcat doing 170 or some shit, bro. Cutting up. That's the thing. I don't think I can do that, bro.
Thomas and his ex-wife, 23-year-old Darian Aaron. Andrew had been drinking heavily that night and was well over the legal limit, with his driving showing as much as he failed to pull over once Feaster approached him, resulting in a police chase that would only end up lasting just a few seconds.
I can't even see. Damn!
Copy, roll over TC, east of Black Olive.
Exactly why, chat. Never
As
do
Andrew
that.
would
Never
drive his
drink
car
and drive.
directly
That's
into a median.
Genuinely a prime example of why you should never try doing anything like that, alright? It's never worth it. Call an Uber.
Causing the SUV to flip over violently before coming to a halt on its side.
Shut the fuck up, I'm doing that. Nigga try preaching the
In that
good shit out
instant,
here,
Darian
bro.
was
Look
ejected
at
from the
this nigga
vehicle,
Barney, bro.
being thrown
Put
straight
his
through
back
the
in the
windshield
gutters.
and landing onto the
Yo, what's
asphalt,
wrong with us, Barney?
where despite still being alive, her injuries were likely unsurvivable. But Andrew, on the other hand, was still inside the vehicle, and he seemed to have been left relatively unharmed.
Yo, what's
As
wrong with us,
perhaps being
Barney?
boosted by adrenaline, he quickly tried to crawl his way out of the car in a desperate attempt to check on Darian, with Officer Feaster's dashcam capturing the entire ordeal. Though just as Andrew attempted to do so, we see Feaster step into the frame, where he suddenly draws his gun, and without saying a single word, fires 2 shots at Andrew, with one of the bullets appearing to strike him, causing his body to go limp as he falls back into the car. It happened in a literal instant, so fast that it's clear Feaster had most likely accidentally discharged his weapon, as there was no attempt at communication before the shot was fired, with Andrew clearly posing no risk to him, as both of his hands were being used to hoist himself up. From the footage, this all seems to be a horrible accident, and one that Feaster seemed to recognize right away as he rushed up to the car, pointing his flashlight at the man that he had just shot, staring at him for over 10 seconds, trying to make sense of what he had just done, before he finally snaps out of it and uses his radio to call for backup. Though this is when this already dark video starts to become much more disturbing.
What happened?
I've got an unresponsive female. I got a male in the car refusing to get out.
When Feaster makes this call, he never mentions the shooting, and instead he states that the driver was refusing to get out of the vehicle. This is then followed by Feaster walking away from the man and pointing his flashlight to the ground, almost as if he was looking for something.
Copy, give your cross on Black Olive.
Pearson.
Copy, Black Olive and Pearson.
With some theorizing that he was looking for his shell casings. Though right then, another officer arrives on the scene and begins to survey the wreckage.
Just her?
No, there's a male in the car refusing to get out.
Where, again, Feaster says that Andrew was refusing to get out of the car, making no mention of the fact that he had just shot him. It's clear at this point what Feaster was trying to do. He was trying to cover up his accident, but this suddenly became more difficult when Andrew started to speak.
Like, nigga didn't even say hands up. Nigga didn't do
Get out
anything.
of the car, sir. You're not shot, sir. Get out of the car.
Andrew Thomas was still alive, and had muttered to Feaster that he had been shot, but even to his face, Feaster denies it. Shortly after, Andrew then tries to tell the other cop what had happened.
Sir, come out of the car. This car is still on, and I don't want you to get hurt. What do you think you got shot? Yeah, I was right there. I saw it.
I ain't gonna lie, didn't they? Listen. Someone had to shoot him.
The cop did not shoot.
I pray that he did not die though off of the bullet, but if he, bro, please tell me he stayed alive.
But understandably, this other cop wasn't believing
I ain't
him,
gonna lie,
as
shoot
surely
that nigga,
Feaster
bro.
would have
For
said
everything
something
that
at this
nigga has.
point. And so, the minutes start to pass. And after 5 full minutes, Feaster continues processing the scene like nothing had happened, with the other officer being left to theorize that Andrew must have been seriously injured and was likely in a state of
He
shock,
drunk,
which is
yeah.
why he was making all of these strange
He
claims
drunk,
about
yeah,
being
but-
shot.
He may be hurt in there.
Yeah, I know he is. He's in shock at the very
You know
least.
his power's still
From here,
going.
the footage cuts, and we're only left with the audio from that same officer's body cam, as he attempts to get more
But hopefully, I'm just praying this nigga not bleeding out though. That's the thing.
information from Andrew.
Sir, I need you to talk to me so I know you're okay. Sir, take a look at me. Did you bump your head?
but by this point, he had gone completely silent.
I don't know if he's serious or not.
10 minutes later, the footage then cuts back on, this time to another officer's body cam, which shows that an ambulance had now finally arrived on the scene, with medics first directing their attention to Darian, who was in the worst shape, as she would tragically be pronounced dead shortly after. But despite all of these first responders on the scene, none of them had any idea that the man inside that vehicle had just been shot, and shot by one of their colleagues. And in these moments, Andrew was slowly losing his life as each minute passed. It would take 11 full minutes before Feaster finally confessed.
Sir, you hold this scene, Manny, with me. We're going over to the cantina to find out if this guy...
They just shot him. I wasn't even pointing at him. The gun could go off.
Saying that he might have shot the man, but he wasn't sure. And immediately after saying this,
Oh my God, are you serious?
No,
the recording is stopped and the footage comes to an end. Sure enough, in that moment, Officer Patrick Feaster had in fact shot Andrew Thomas, with a bullet striking him directly in the neck. And the reason why he wasn't getting out of his vehicle was because that gunshot had left him fully paralyzed from the neck down. His condition was awful, and made worse by the length of time that it took for him to receive proper treatment. And despite fighting for weeks, Andrew Thomas would lose his life less than 1 month later due to that gunshot wound. Afterwards, Feaster admitted that he did fire his gun, but claimed that in the moment he wasn't actually sure if he had hit Andrew. But many found this hard to believe, as his gun clearly goes off while he's pointing it at Andrew, and he clearly gets a good view of him immediately after the fact. Not to mention the fact that Andrew literally told him over and over again that he was shot. But for many, by far the most incriminating moment was when Feaster appeared to be looking for his shell casings. And because of his actions, Officer Patrick Feaster would be found guilty of manslaughter and receive a prison sentence of 180 days.
What the fuck?
A decision that was heavily contested but ultimately upheld. And while no one is defending Andrew Thomas's decision to drink and drive that night, Feaster's use of deadly force and his blatant attempt at covering it up make this footage harrowing nonetheless.
Oh my gosh, bro. That shit is sickening, bro. That shit genuinely be sickening, my nigga. What's going on though, Tank? But hold on, my man.
I don't got no problem with giving back.
They kind of crazy.
I'm the only one out here with a show that's actually giving back. You feel
Young
me? And I got
QC gives
proof
back.
to show it.
It's May 2013. 23-year-old Quamaine Wilson arrives at his local bank in Chicago, Illinois to deposit $20,000 cash, which he planned on giving out to groups of his most adoring fans.
Man, about
You a rapper?
to put this $1,000 out for the fans, man. Really, I'm gonna take out $20,000, man. Just to show people, you feel me? I'm on a whole different level with this.
To this point, Quamaine had carved out a respectable following on his YouTube channel, where he acted in a series called The Nick Story.
One more word out your mouth, and that's your ass. That's your life. I'm gonna take it myself and put it in my graveyard with the rest of them.
Along with posting music he made under the name Young
He's
QC.
just moving like this in worldwide now.
Not until she's. I know she will. I'm gonna get you.
Based on his viewership alone, his success was apparent, and he wasn't shy about showing off the wealth that he claimed to have accrued as a result of it, posting photos and videos of himself flaunting large amounts of cash across his social media pages. But this video was by far his most boastful yet, as he would take that $20,000 and throw it into the air for all of his fans to fight over.
Chad, was this technically the 2013
With
Underground?
Quamaine clearly relishing
think
the
about that
opportunity
shit?
to show off his riches, despite the fact that behind the scenes, things weren't quite as they seemed. The truth was, Quamaine had actually earned very little from his channel despite its viewership, with this being on account of his videos containing copywritten music, and the fact that he only had a dozen or so uploads. In fact, his social media flexing had started well before he even made his first video, as in reality, all of this money was coming straight from his mother, Yolanda Holmes.
Damn, mom was
Having started a successful business in Chicago, Yolanda made a great living for herself and Quamaine. And being her only son, Quamaine was given just about
boy got a
anything he could have
yam.
asked
He
for.
part of the
She would buy
yam
him
with me.
designer clothes,
Oh,
jewelry, and even the Mustang seen in this video. But for Quamaine, it never seemed to be enough. He wanted to achieve a life of fame and riches, and he used his mother's finances to
Yeah,
sell the
fam.
illusion that he already had. asking her again and again to purchase him things that could help him sell this dream, until one day, it all came crashing down
bro wanted to be the
when
biggest
Yolanda
flexer.
would tragically lose her life.
Damn, RP.
Just like that, Quamain's entire support system had fallen out beneath his feet, leaving him without his mother and without the provider who was funding his entire life. But strangely, this didn't seem to stop his lavish online presence. In fact, his spending only seemed to increase after this, as this footage of him giving away money to fans actually took place after the death of his mother, which became extremely off-putting for law enforcement, as Yolanda hadn't simply passed away, and instead, she had been brutally murdered.
Damn, what the fuck?
Quamain had learned something shortly before Yolanda's passing, that not only were his mother's savings entirely willed to him, but she had also taken out 2 life insurance policies, in which he was the sole beneficiary. And despite Yolanda giving him anything that he could have asked for, it seemed that by this point, Quamain had simply grown tired of having to ask. And so, on September 2nd, 2012,
That better not be the guy.
he would offer his friend Eugene Spencer $3,500 to kill his own mother. Eugene accepted the offer, and that night he would travel to the
What the
apartment of
fuck?
Yolanda Holmes late at night, where he
He offered a nigga to. Okay, see.
Eugene Spencer $3,500 on September 2nd, 2012. He would offer his friend Eugene Spencer $3,500 to kill his own mother. Eugene accepted the offer, and that night he would travel to the apartment of Yolanda Holmes late at night, where he entered her room and shot her multiple times as she slept. At the time, her boyfriend had been sleeping next to her, and despite jumping up and doing his best to fight off the attacker, Eugene would eventually beat him unconscious before fleeing the scene. Eugene would call Quamain immediately after the attack to tell him that the job was done, but rather than feeling any sort of guilt, Quamain instead had no emotion, and he simply stated, "Make sure the bitch is dead." And so, Eugene went back up to that unit, this time brandishing a knife,
Bro.
and repeatedly stabbed Yolanda until he was absolutely certain she was gone. And with that, Quamain Holmes was a rich man, and it only cost him the life of his own mother. For a moment, the crime had worked perfectly. The police were left with no concrete leads as to who might have killed Yolanda, and the public largely believed that it was her boyfriend, whom Eugene had knocked unconscious. But no one even thought to look at
Person that was funding
Quamain,
that whole
and recognizing that he was in the clear, his
facade
behavior
lifestyle
grew
that
brazen
this bitch-ass
almost
nigga was putting on,
immediately.
bro. No, fuck this
Quamain
nigga.
Wilson
Fuck
lost
this
his
nigga
mother
being
to
part
gun
of the
violence on
fuck this
November
nigga.
14th.
My mother, she was a neighborhood woman. A guy entered her home, and murdered her, just to steal.
As he went on TV to talk about his mother's murder, where he peddled the theory to the public that this was some sort of botched robbery, all the while he showed no emotion. He wouldn't even wait a full week before depositing the money, as he took out $90,000 within just the first few days, and immediately began showing it off to his followers. And in this footage where he gave away that $20,000, throwing it into the air as if it meant nothing to him, every cent of that had come from the death of his own mother, a death in which he was entirely responsible for. It would take over a full year for Quamain and Eugene to be caught, with police largely being tipped off by his online antics.
That's how you know money.
And in the
truly be
end,
root of
Eugene
all
was given a
evil, bro. I ain't
100-year
gonna lie,
prison
bro.
sentence, while Quamain
That's how
received
you know that
99
shit is genuinely
years,
the root of all evil, bro.
with his legacy now permanently defined by his creation of one of YouTube's darkest videos.
So your dumbass music career flop, bitch ass nigga. No
I want to give one last
you.
thank you to this video
Bitch-ass
sponsor,
nigga.
MyHeritage. Use my link down below to
Bro,
get your
that
first
shit
14
is so
days
fucking
completely
crazy,
free,
bro.
or
That
scan the
shit is
QR
genuinely-
code and
I
start
ain't gonna lie,
uncovering
bro.
your
That shit's
story.
genuinely the root of all evil, bro. It is, bro. Good video though, Nick. RP to mom, bro.